Parshat Noach, which we read this Shabbat, is one of those moments in the Torah that you really kind of like want to remember forever and cuddle with. Is a rainbow and the animals and Noah. It's really a beautiful story. Hundreds of children's pajamas and decorations for the rooms have been inspired by this Torah portion. But the truth is that there's a deeper story and a deeper undercurrent of human behavior going on throughout the Parsha that really should caution us in how we live our lives today. And I think that there's bookends at the beginning and at the end of the Torah portion that really address the issue of human behavior in a way that no other Torah portion or other place in the Torah addresses. At the beginning of the Torah portion, the idea that God needs to destroy the world because of what people are doing, the way they're behaving. So what exactly were they doing? But Imale Aretz Hamas, the Torah says. If you read the translation that we have in front of us, it says that the earth was filled with chaos. But the truth is that the rabbis of the Talmud do not translate the word Hamas as chaos. And by the way, the word Hamas in our Torah portion and the name of the terrorist organization is just a coincidence. Okay? So how do the rabbis translate the word Hamas in the Talmud? They actually translate it as petty thievery, like highway robbery, lawlessness. And one of the ideas that we have to ask about in this Torah portion is, why would God destroy the world if, according to the rabbis, it was only petty thievery? The world was destroyed because of misdemeanors. So they go in depth in the Talmud trying to understand why it happened. And I want to share with you a story that actually will help us realize what the word Hamas means, lawlessness. It was 1996, and it was the last day of rabbinical school. And we got a letter that we had to go to the bursar's office at JTS to liquidate our accounts. That means, we had to pay rent, we had to pay for tuition and other stuff. And I had a balance, and I couldn't understand why I had a balance. Because I had a scholarship from a Swiss foundation that actually paid for my rent and for part of my tuition. And the seminary was paying for the other part of my tuition, so why did I have a balance? That was a mystery to me. And I got a note that I had a $400 balance and I had to go to the bursar's office. So I go to the bursar's office, and let me just describe the scene. Everyone who worked at JTS at the bursar's office in the 90s was Russian. I don't know if it was by design, but you walked in and it was like, welcome to bursar's office. So I walk in and, of course, welcome to bursar's office. How will we help you? And I go, I don't know, I got a letter that says I owe $400. Oh, Goodman. I go, yes. You're the guy with the peso coins. I said, excuse me? Yeah, you're the guy with the guy with the pesos. So then I understood what was happening. So I have to go back and tell you another story before we end this one. There was a soda vending machine at the seminary. Elaine, you remember the soda machine? It was 25 cents for a Diet Coke. And in the 90s, there was a peso coin in Mexico that was exactly the same size as a quarter. Wait, it's not over yet. Now in the United States, because people are very smart here, they actually designed the soda machines to be able to tell, not only by the weight, but by the design of the coin itself, if the coin was fake or not. But the seminary was 10 years behind in their technology. So the soda machine at the seminary only weighted the coin. That's the only thing it did. And I discovered that. So I will call my father, who would come from Mexico, and I said, Dad, could you bring me 100 peso coins? He says, I can't bring that many. It's a lot of weight. I said, well, 50, whatever you can. So every time my parents came, and then he would send me some with my in-laws too, they brought me peso coins. Nobody knew what they were. They were for two things: parking meters in New York City and the soda machine at the seminary. And of course, I should have been featured in America's Dumbest Criminals, because I should have realized that nobody else at JTS had peso coins. By the way, a peso back then was worth nothing, the same as today, so it was really even less back then because it was 3 zeros, right? It was before they took 3 zeros out. So I walk into the bursar's office and I realize my crime, and this woman pulls out a bag filled with pesos. And she says to me, "We will not charge the exchange rate. We will charge a quarter per peso." I didn't know what to say. There were people there, they were all laughing. I was super embarrassed. I took out the checkbook. There was no Venmo in those days. Made out the check to JTS and paid. And then I said, "Hold on. My friend Jacob Herbert drank about half of those sodas. You should charge him." And they said to me, "You are only Mexican at JTS. You pay for the pesos." That is lawlessness. When you do something that is so little that you believe it will have no consequences ever in the history of the world. Not only that, you do something that's so ridiculously small that you believe you will never get caught. You get caught eventually. That's exactly what the rabbis meant. And that's what really ticked off God. It's not that people were killing one another. It's that they were running all the red lights. And that eventually created so much chaos in the world that it turned it upside down. And God was completely upset by this because God never calculated in the equation of creation that human beings could be so clever, that they would figure out to do something so insignificant to keep it under the threshold of a crime, that they would be so insolent as to believe they would never get caught. But you do get caught. And eventually the earth gets destroyed, peso by peso. Now, that's the first part of the Torah portion. Second part, the end, the second bookend, the Tower of Babel. Vayikol haaretz safa achat udbarim achadim. The entire world was one language and one single word. People understood each other. They all spoke the same language. They all had the same ideas. And so they decide they're going to build a tower that's going to reach up to heaven because they decide that they want to be like God. And of course, God is watching this. And in a puzzling chain of events, he turns around and says, we need to go down there and do something to these people. And he speaks in the plural, and according to the rabbis, he's speaking to the angels that are surrounding him. And the angels are really upset too, accordingly. And they go down, and they cause a confusion to come upon the earth, and that's how all different languages are born. Now, also the rabbis in the Talmud are puzzled by the event. They say, really? What is so wrong about wanting to build a tower? They're being entrepreneurial. They want to better themselves. Why is God so upset? After all, aren't we told to imitate God? Think about it. Judaism actually preaches that we have to imitate God, that we want to be like God. Just like God visits Abram when he's sick after the circumcision, so we visit the sick. Just like God clothes Adam and Eve, so we clothe the naked. And so forth and so on. So many mitzvot we do because we try to imitate God. The whole enterprise of the Heber Kadisha. We bury our dead with our own hands, with love, because that's how God buried Moses. So now the rabbis say, are you telling us we shouldn't try to be like God? So Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which is a midrash from the 7th, 8th century, after the Arab conquer of the land of Israel, has two different versions of what really happened. One midrash attributed to Rabbi Pinchas and the other one to Rabbi Shimon talk about exactly what was the problem that God had with the people of the Tower of Babel. So, Rabbi Pinchas says, the problem was not that they were trying to build the tower. They didn't have any bricks. So every brick that they made, they actually had to manufacture. They had to boil earth with straw and put it together. So it was a long, painful thing to build the tower because they had to make everything by hand. And if a person fell from the top of the tower where they were building, nobody cared. But if a brick fell and broke, they all sat Shiva. So they cared more about the bricks than they cared about people. Because it was so much more important to reach God and to be like God than to be who you were and to care for the person next to you. The common goal, the idea of making this great tower became so important that we were really ready to build it by whatever means necessary. Whatever happened to the people around them, they didn't care. And that's why God got so mad. But Rabbi Shimon says, no, it was not like that. It was exactly the opposite. What happened was, because they all spoke the same language and had the same ideas, they did not know how to disagree with one another. They were not used to disagreeing. And so, because they were so frustrated that they couldn't disagree, they took out their weapons and they started killing one another. That's why God decided to confuse their languages, so that they would learn the art of compromise, of coming to the middle, of listening to one another. You cannot build by ignoring the other. You only build by listening to one another. So these are two opposite ideas of how you build a society. One is to the common goal, and only that matters. The other one is by listening to one another. And we as Jews are always caught in the middle. That's why we don't like extremes. We thrive in the center. We thrive in the middle. We thrive in consensus, not in extremes. These are such important ideas that come from our Torah portion, that I really believe they are eternal, even more so than the image of the ark and the animals. People are always enthralled by trying to figure out if this really happened or not. I have to tell you, what is the difference? What matters are ultimately these gigantic ideas that regulate our behavior as human beings. Not whether Noah came into the ark with 2 animals or 7 animals or 8 animals, where they pooped, what they ate, how it smelled, which I'm not saying is not important. But it's all part of trying to build a metaphor for how we understand human behavior. And lastly, if we're really concerned about what happened in the ark, imagine living in that ark for those 40 days and 40 nights, with the elephants, with the giraffes, with the zebras, with their food, with their byproducts, with one window that you couldn't open because you would drown. You couldn't do it without compromising. You couldn't do it without listening to one another. And that's what we really ultimately need to learn. That if we don't pay attention to each other's needs and wants and complaints, yes, as trivial as they may be, we run the risk of living entirely in a lawless society, where everyone just does whatever they want, because how is putting a peso in a parking meter going to alter the order of the world? And the truth is that eventually it does. Now, all of you who are here who are under the age of 18 or 21, please do not put foreign currency in the parking meters. That's not cool. That's not cool, okay? And I learned my lesson. I really did. If I would have paid for those sodas, it would have been much easier from the beginning. My father wouldn't have to schlep the coins, or my father-in-law. They didn't know what I was using them for. They wouldn't have given them to me. It's one of those things. I still have some of those pesos coins, saved in one of my drawers, just in case of emergency. But seriously, Let us listen to one another. Let us build a world and a society that we're proud of, not because we force others to believe in what we believe, but because we listen to the person next to us and try to understand where they're coming from. Shabbat Shalom u'mevorach. Let us please rise. We're going to continue on page 184.